The larger concept for this landscape is Sensario, and I thought Bruce's exhibit would be such the right introduction for people to get a feel for what Sensario when it's finally done could be like. And the idea is to give people, as I say, it's an exercise, not an exercise in the mind, but it is directed to the mind. It's almost an intellectual activity in a sense, where you engage the visitor in an active sort of way to be part of the whole landscape. It's not something to be watched. It's not something to be, physically, are you going to be stimulated? But it's meant to focus on the mind. And I think after having been to Uluru and having seen the effect that it had on the visitors to Uluru, the tourists and so forth, and to my wife, Bobby, and myself, I just thought that this would be the perfect introduction.
Field of Light for me it's a passion. It's something that I've dreamt of taking across the world to basically simply bring a bit of joy and connection to people, because a lot of the work and interest that I have in working is about time and place. With these sorts of installation, there are hundreds of people who get involved. It's not just my studio, it's all the people here, it's all the items that have to be manufactured, they have to be processed. There's thousands of man-hours that go into it, and this is a piece of work that is made by many. It's not just one person, and everybody is essential. So I always say we're all a part of a cake, and we are all a slice of cake, and the cake is only made whole when actually the visitors come, because you don't have an artwork without people coming to see it. So it is everybody.
So how many, in getting it from England, where it's being manufactured,
yes,
I guess, and then how does it get here? I mean, how many sea trains and so forth?
Two 40-foot containers that will be currently making everything at the moment. Every single fibre is handled. There's 60,000 stems, but the meterage of fibre is, it's miles of fibre.
Miles.
Yeah, so 230 projectors. They're all solar powered, so it's a very green installation in that sense. It also makes it gentle on the landscape, because we're not running cables under the landscape. It's taking the power from the sun, which is lovely, and then leaking it out at night.
Yeah, returning it.
Yeah.
to the.
There are going to be, it's a solar powered installation. There are going to be 60,000 stems. The number isn't chosen randomly, it's actually how many stems we need to fill this huge space. And it will be the biggest installation I've ever done by quite some margin. But as I said, it wasn't trying to do it bigger for the sake of being bigger, it's just what the landscape requires.
The question that comes to mind is, how did this all begin, and how did I meet Bruce? We were inspired by his work in a place in the outback in Australia called Uluru, and so Bobby and I, when we flew to Australia to go on a 10-day, 2-week vacation, we decided that we would go to Uluru on our way to Perth. We managed to stay up, another 3 or 4 hours, because we got there in the afternoon and we were looking around for something to do, and there was this kind of tour, there was a desk over there and said, well, we have, you can have dinner in a place called the Field of Light, and it's really something, you should see it. And so we looked at each other and say, should we go to bed or shall we stay up? and we stayed up. So total serendipity that we actually attended Bruce's exhibit. And they bussed us out there. They gave us a nice meal, and then as the sun went down and the darkness appeared, out of the darkness came this incredible, light. How could I say it was light? And the experience of walking through it, the peaceful feeling that came from walking through it, it sort of calmed down, and the jet lag never did show up because I was so taken by the exhibit itself. And so we spent maybe an hour and a half, I would think, kind of just wandering around. And I think we were the last ones out of the exhibit as we traveled on. I couldn't get out of my head what Uluru was and how it was so comfortable and so part of the landscape and so appropriate, so to speak, and yet and so ephemeral as well. It was very ephemeral. In other words, when it goes, it'll be gone, and the landscape will not be altered, essentially. So then since I would already had a project here in Paso Robles called Sensario, which the theme we kept, working around. It's been working on it for years and years. It was sort of the playground for the mind, or a theme park with no rides, or any number of things that you can imagine. And something that I've been inspired by other, particularly gardens that I'd visited throughout the U.S. I couldn't get this out of my head, and I said, given the landscape we have here in Paso Robles and these sort of hidden valleys that are present here on this property, I started to imagine that something like the Field of Light could happen here. The only thing I didn't have was any idea who had done the work. And so when we got home to the U.S. back from our vacation, I started to research who's the artist and how did it happen and so forth and so on. So I'm not sure, I can't quite remember, but I think I ended up emailing Bruce's agent and asking about Bruce and the Field of Light, and does he do this in other places? What's his, where does he done? And obviously in looking at his other work on the internet, I was trying to not just come across like a fan, but come across somebody that had was serious about doing something that he would that I was capable of doing, and that he would pay attention.
It was a complete joy and privilege to, and it's interesting to hear your story, because we do get people inquiring, but straight away, as you said, Jennifer said immediately, this guy's serious. And in fact, when I was doing a project in Colorado Springs, and I met you and Bobby for the first time.
Yeah, that's
and
the
I
first
have
time
to
we introduced.
say, I immediately felt a kindred spirit with you. Whether you felt the same for me, I don't know, but you were very gracious and very kind, and I knew that this was a passion. You did, you came with rolls of drawings and laid them out on a table in a hotel, and I was flabbergasted by the scale that you were thinking on, which was really what I love doing. So it was a sort of it's like walking into a sweet shop as a child. From my point of view, I was thinking, God, this is somebody who can really make this happen. What is interesting about Sensario, when you say this is a place for the mind. What I felt meeting you and Bobby was it was a place for the spirit and mind. And I really do believe that a lot of the work that I do is very spirit-based, without trying to overlay it on anything. Uluru for me was an experience I wasn't expecting. I was there with Serena in '92. We had a tent and an old banger, and we were about to leave Australia, arrived at Uluru, and I got this incredible reaction to the landscape. And I always say it was a present given to me from the landscape, because, you know, I happened to be working in light at the time, and I felt that there was a sense of energy in the ground and in the air, and I guess it was how I was going to express it. So rather, if I had been any good with paints and things, I might have painted a picture, but, you know, I wasn't. So I worked with lights, and my reaction was to create a field of light. But it took 12 years to get the first one. 12 years from the idea into my in a field at the back of my home, and a mortgage as well. So it's been a long journey, and to create the Uluru project was one thing, but I feel that people that my experience is that it does change people. It puts a smile on people's faces, and it gives them a warm heart, and you're doing this in Paso Robles, so I think that people will, I hope that they come and enjoy it. What they have created here is a miracle, because the landscape was beautiful, but they had to grade it in such a way that it was friendly for visitors. It has to, you've worked with all the local authorities to make sure that from a municipal
environmental standpoint.
Yeah, it all works. So it's been incredible. The people, it's not engineering, this is what I call landscape sculpture, and Steve, who's been responsible, is really a sculptor of land. So it's almost like I'm working with another sculptor here, and boy, I've never seen such a perfect piece of, I can't wait to get here to start this installation.